Welcome, Buff fans. I'm pleased to be joined by a fellow Colorado beat writer, Scott Procter from DNVR. You guys know him very well. Scott, how many years is this? Year three or four? You covering the Buffs? Is it?
Much less than that. This will be my second year covering the Buffs,
No, it's only
which
two.
is
Come on.
crazy, right? It feels like I'm not lying. It feels like I've been here, like personally, it feels like I've been here for
Yeah.
forever. But this is only my
Hmm.
second season. I haven't even lived in Colorado for 2 years yet.
Really? Huh.
Yep,
Wow. Time flies. I thought it'd been
it,
longer.
it really does. Yeah, for sure. It's
Well,
been a blast.
maybe that's because we've gotten to know you well enough. It feels like longer. So, but I thought I thought you'd been here as long as Coach Prime has been here at least, but I guess
Nah,
not.
nah,
So.
yeah.
But I'm glad to have you on because obviously we see each other all the time at all the media stuff, and I've been telling you I'd love to do a video with you and kind of get your thoughts. And now we're doing this on a Friday, and fall camp starts on Sunday or on Monday. The team
Yep.
reports on Sunday, and really about an hour before we started doing this, we got the email that hey, Coach Prime's gonna have a presser on Monday with his medical team, which as
Hmm.
we're talking about, throw that out there. That's causing a stir on social media. All the speculation is what's going on. And so let's just start there because that's the story right now coming into camp. And let's talk about what we know, which is not a whole lot, but what's your thoughts on that situation where he's going to talk with his medical team?
Yeah, I mean, I think without all the details, people are going to jump to, all type of different conclusions and whatnot. And that's just the era that we live in with social media and whatnot. But I think it's from, like you said, from what we've been told, from what we know, I think this is just something where there has been so much uncertainty surrounding Coach Prime's health this offseason that I think Monday is just going to be the first real opportunity for Coach Prime and alongside his medical staff to just explain to everybody what's been going on and what currently is going on and how things might look for him, this year, this season, and beyond. And I think that's a good thing, right? Because I'm sure there are things going on with Coach Prime's health that he probably can't even explain. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying, or
yeah,
know how to elaborate on. And that's why you have the professionals, the medical experts there to answer any questions or, just alleviate, I think, any worry as well. Because again, everything we've heard, he's been traveling. He obviously was just recently in Tampa this week visiting Shiloh. He obviously know he's already back here in Boulder, Colorado as well. So, with camp starting, as you mentioned, on Monday, this is the time to get everything out in the open, so to
yeah,
speak.
yeah.
So I think Monday will be a good opportunity. Obviously, be great to hear from Coach Prime as always. I'm sure he'll be in there energetic like he was, down in Frisco a couple weeks ago for Big 12 Media Day. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to camp as a whole. It's a very, really big year, obviously, as you know. So it'll
Yeah.
be fun.
Yeah, I pretty much have the same take as far as Coach Prime goes. I feel like with the medical stuff, clearly there was something big enough that's happened that the medical team needs to be down
Yeah.
there and that he wants some explanation there. This wasn't like, he had a long flu or, something like that and, lost 14 pounds and, just wanted to hang out in Dallas or in Canton, Texas for a while. Clearly something was bigger, but I think you're right in that, yeah, he was in Tampa. If you watch well off, you knew that, he was not in Big 12 Media Days very long, but he went directly from there to hop on a plane and go film a commercial. So, that was kind of his first getting back to doing things, right?
Right.
Was a Big 12 Media Day, and that was 3 weeks ago, I think it was. So we've seen him kind of being back to his normal self, and looks like he looked good to me at Big 12 Media Day,
Same.
and sounded the same and all that. So I think
Right.
we're just going to get an update, which is I think that's just the time he picked to like, all right, here's what's going on. And they've been telling us, right?
Yeah.
Especially Bucky's been saying, you guys are going to find out soon enough. And so
Right.
Monday, I think, is that day. And then we'll move on and start focusing on football, hopefully. And hopefully, I'm just hoping that with his medical stuff, that it's something that, is being treated and he's taken care of and he's going to be just fine.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean that's what I'm expecting. That's certainly what I'm hoping for. That it's nothing anything major and nothing that
Yeah.
will linger on for years or longer than it needs to. So I think everybody we're gonna get Monday on Monday, what everybody's been looking for, which is just answers, just an
Yeah.
explanation, and then like you mentioned, we can move on to football at that point, hopefully.
course, as we know, there will always be some people that say there were certain things they wanted to know and didn't find out. We'll
Of
find out
course,
most of the answers, right?
you know
But
how that goes.
yeah. So let's transition to football because that is probably the number one storyline going into day one of camp is how's his health, and frankly, I think beyond that, it's hey, how was this offseason for you? Because not only this, but like the first off season without Shador and Shiloh, and he becomes
Right,
a grandfather, and there's a whole bunch of stuff. And so I can't
electric.
imagine the emotions, the range of emotions, positive, negative. I mean, the whole draft weekend. I mean, we saw
Exactly.
in well off. I mean, how there was some emotions going on there. So this had to be quite an off season for him. I'm curious to find that out. But as far as the football aspect, Scott, you mentioned it's a big year. It is a big year. I mean, I don't know what quite yet to make of this team. I don't know how good they're going to be. I know that the narrative that they will say is that they think they're better than last year.
Yep.
I personally, I'm just one, Scott, that I need to see it first before I believe that. Like I'm one that I don't know how you lose the Heisman Trophy winner and the best college football player of the last quarter century and the best quarterback in the country, and you become better. I think they have good pieces, but I think it's going to be interesting to see how everything comes together.
It is going to be really interesting because you mentioned you lose, in my opinion, the best quarterback in college football. You lose
Mhm.
arguably the best player in college football, and Travis Hunter and Shador Sanders, respectfully. That's to a lot of people, and especially we're seeing in the national media, that's going to cause a lot of people to just write this team off.
Yeah. Hmm.
Simple. But for me, I think after losing Shador Sanders, and I've talked about this, after losing somebody like Shador Sanders, could there have been a better plan at quarterback than the one that is unfolded here at Colorado, where you land one of the top transfer quarterbacks in the
Yeah.
portal this
Hmm.
winter? Who I don't know if you know this, but Caden Salter has the most total touchdowns amongst returning FBS starters over the last 2 seasons. 66 total touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. That's the same amount as Cade Klubnik. Nobody has more in
Yeah.
returning FBS quarterbacks touchdowns than those two guys. So you brought in an ultra experienced, productive quarterback who's going to be alongside a quarterback or in a quarterback competition with a five-star quarterback.
Yeah.
Somebody who has been a phenom, since he was in little league, and still has that trajectory. I think Juju Lewis is a future NFL quarterback, a future first round NFL draft pick. So again, coming off of Shador, the quarterback situation is in a lot better spot than I would say 90% of college football programs, right?
Right.
You're not going to be able to replace a Travis Hunter, his two-way ability, his electricity, his ability to take a 5-yard hitch and turn it into a 60-yard touchdown, right? But I don't think anybody is going to call this receiver room at Colorado a weak spot. You know what I'm saying? I don't think
Yeah.
anybody's going to do that with the talent.
I
Sure, the production isn't
yeah.
really there, right? Because Omarion, has popped, but we haven't seen
Yeah.
it for a full season. Draylen is still a true
Hmm.
sophomore. JoJo Williams is a true sophomore, and you brought in some other guys. So you don't have that documented production like you had with Travis and LeJounte in the past, or even Will Shepard in the past. But the receiver room, I think, is going to be solid.
Yeah.
Offensive line, I think, is where this team is going to make the biggest jump. And that's where I had a lot of optimism last year because part of my thinking was like, well, there's no way they can be as bad or worse than they were in 2023.
Right.
And granted, the offensive line situation last year wasn't ideal by any means, but again, it wasn't as bad as 2023.
Right.
I'm expecting an even bigger jump here in 2025. A
Yeah.
true sophomore Jordan Seaton, who, like Juju, is a future first round NFL
Hmm.
draft pick. Already, in my opinion,
Yep.
one of the best offensive linemen in college football. You bring in my opinion, two elite guards who have played a lot of football. Cy Crisler is a two-time All Big Ten honorable mention.
Right.
Xavier Hill has started 26 straight games, 2 straight seasons of starts at Memphis, a two-time All AAC conference pick as well. So offensive line, I think, is where you get the most optimism. And like you said earlier, people are going to want to see it to believe it in terms of that real improvement on the offensive line. But that's going to be the biggest thing, right? It's going to be how well this offensive line plays and can they have a running game,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's probably going to be the biggest
Right.
on field question.
Right.
Will they have a running game? Can they produce, just some type of ground attack? And I think Caden Salter is going to help in that regard with his dual threat ability. I really like DeKalen Taylor, the addition of, the nickname Trackhawk. I think he's
Yeah.
going to be a real weapon in this offense. And that's really just offensively because defensively, I trust Robert Livingston with my entire heart. What he showed to me in his first full year as a defensive coordinator leading that unit, I have no worries about Robert Livingston, the job he's going to do. I think this team is going to be defensive led early on this
Yeah.
season. It's going to be about how quickly the offense and the quarterbacks can come along.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. I will say I'm writing about the quarterbacks today, and I have a line in there that this is probably with Caden and Juju. I mean, Shadour's the best quarterback
Yeah.
Colorado's seen, right? We're in agreement there. But with Caden and Juju, I think this is the best duo of quarterbacks Colorado has had. I
Oh,
would say since Cordell Stewart and Corey Detmer were teammates in 1994,
ooh, that's a
because
lot right
I
there.
don't know if you can find a better duo.
Yeah.
I mean, you can find individuals like
Sure, a
Stefan
better
Lufau
starter.
had his
Sure.
moments. Steven Montez, Joel
Right.
Klatt had his moments. But as far as a duo,
Exactly.
I don't think there's been a better one since Cordell and Corey Detmer. And ironically, Cordell mentored Juju growing up. So
It's crazy.
I think you make a great point in that. Could you have were you going to find somebody as good as Shador? No, but could you have landed in a better spot quarterback wise coming off of Shador than this? Probably not. I like the way you put that because I think that is a good way to put it. In that I don't think you can get much better than this. When you're at Colorado,
Seriously.
and I will say for this team, where I believe this team could be as good or better, is the trenches, and I think that's such a key. That if that offensive line is significantly better, I think you
Yeah,
get so much more done offensively, and you can be as productive and put up the same numbers you put up offensively last year. If that
for sure.
defensive line stops the run better than you did last year,
Hmm.
everything else looks a lot better, and now you play defense like you did last year. And so I agree with it there. Offensive line, I'm excited about because of the guys you mentioned. I didn't realize this the other day until I really put it down on paper that we talk about all the there's 9 transfers that came in, right? But 41 of the 64 starts are back on the offensive line. And now it wasn't
People don't
great.
talk about that.
It wasn't great. We know
Who
that,
right.
um, but it's still starting experience. And we're going to see a better Jordan Seaton, right? Um,
Oh, yes.
Tyler Brown, we know struggled, but Tyler Brown had to sit out the previous year, and gets in there last year. I think Tyler Brown, that was his first year of FBS football. He's going to be better this year, I think, if he gets that opportunity to play and start.
Yeah,
Kareem Harden, Philip Houston, I don't know what to expect out of them, but you now look at all of the starting experience and game time experience on that offensive line. It's like, whoo, okay. I don't know who it's going to be, but I feel more confident in that group than I ever have under Coach Prime.
no doubt. I mean, this is the best offensive line that of the Coach Prime era, no
Yeah,
doubt. And I don't think we have to see games to say that and it to be
right.
true.
Yeah,
Some of the other transfer, like adding a guy like Larry Johnson the third, a massive human being, 6'7",
yeah,
350 pounds, 15 career games played, I believe, no starts, but he was working with Tennessee's first team offense, this spring. Cooper Lovelace is another guy who I think could potentially play in either at center or
yeah.
guard.
Hmm.
He has tackle experience as well, dating back to his JUCO days. Started 9 games, I believe, last year in the Big Ten at Northwestern. So this is a really flexible dude too. That's something he's shown off in some of
Yeah.
the well-out videos and
I think
whatnot, which could help him in the interior offensive line.
another Andre Roy. I think he started
Yeah,
7 games at Maryland last year, and
yeah,
Zarian McGill. I think it's got like 2,000 snaps in his career at
yeah.
center.
27 career starts, I believe,
so
for Zarian. So,
so
and
yeah,
Coach Prime told us last year, like he wants to play like 8 to 10 guys on the offensive
yeah,
line. One, because it keeps guys fresh and keeps guys competitive, but two, in this NIL transfer portal era, if somebody feels like they're not getting a fair shake or not getting the
yeah,
playing time they deserve, they're going to jet out. So
yeah.
that was a lofty goal last year. But I think this year you legitimately have 8 to 10 guys who nobody would bat an eye out if they were in that starting lineup.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. Is that maybe that old school thought of let's just have the five has to go out the window a little bit in college football
Yeah,
because of NIL.
yeah,
Ideally, you want that, but
for sure.
if you can rotate a little bit and keep guys happy, I
Yeah,
think that I think this is the deepest offensive line we've seen. And you mentioned the receiver room. Anybody that says Colorado's receiver room is a weakness is only looking at what they lost
exactly.
and not looking at the potential what they have and has not really studied this group. I think
Exactly.
this group, I remember Jimmy Horn at Pro Day was like, I'm still going to give the nod to our group, and I agree with him, but
Yeah,
I think this group is deeper than what they had last year. That 1 through 4, really 1 through 6, when Omarion was healthy, was really good. You might be able to go 1 through 8 or 9 on this team and feel
For
pretty
real.
confident in what you're throwing out there. So I think offensively they've got a shot to be as productive as they were last year, and I think it'll look very different. I wouldn't be surprised if Caden Salter's the leading rusher on this team,
No, I
or
wouldn't either, actually.
and I wouldn't be surprised if it's Dallin Hayden or um,
Or Micah
Michael
or
Welch.
Jalen Taylor, right?
Yeah, there's about four guys. I wouldn't be surprised if it's
Yep,
them, but I really wouldn't be surprised if it's Caden Salter. So you have, because of that, you have that different dynamic in how you're going to go about it offensively. Defensively, I agree with you on Robert Livingston. It's like, how do you not trust him after what happened last year? And
seriously.
the players love that guy.
Right.
Like I've never heard people love a coordinator before, you know?
I don't think I've ever heard, yeah, players glow about their current coordinator the way, and
Yeah,
especially in that short of time, right? Like that was his first year
yeah,
around those guys, and they would go to war for him, and they did go to war with him every week.
yeah. And we've heard it in the past where coaches will say like, "Yeah, I'm going to play to the strengths of the players," and but for whatever reason it doesn't work out, or the players they
Exactly,
don't like the way he's going about it. He not only did it, but he did it in a way that the players still loved him and were like, "Yeah, man, that guy's awesome." And he found a way to make those guys happy. You talk about making people happy in the portal era. I mean,
yeah,
look what he did last year with, yeah, Carter Stoutmeyer. We're still going to get you some time.
for
Colton
sure.
Hood, we're still going to throw you out there at times.
Yep,
They still got spot time for some of those guys. And now I know Colton's gone, but how much better is a Carter Stoutmeyer now because he got a chance to play last year? So
no doubt.
I think there's a lot of pieces on that defense I look at and say, yeah, that could be a pretty salty defense. But it's still, to me, it's a lot of unknown, but there's still a lot of intrigue on that defense.
And if you would have told a Colorado football fan before the last season, before the 2024 season, that Colorado would lead the Big 12 in sacks, they wouldn't believe you.
Right,
They'd be like, "There's just no way." After what we saw in
right,
2023, but that's what they
right.
did.
Hmm.
They had the most sacks in the Big 12 last year, with obviously BJ Green leading the way. But a lot of those guys, four of their top six sack leaders from last year, are back. Arden
Yeah,
Walker, he got my vote for all preseason, preseason all Big 12. I don't think he got the nod from the entire media, but it's somebody who I'm expecting to approach 10 sacks this year. Like Arden
yeah,
Walker, I believe, according to Pro Football Focus, was the second highest graded edge player in the Big 12 last year. And a lot of people think of edge rushers and they like to point to the sack numbers or whatnot. But Arden Walker, to me, also is one of the best edge defenders against the run. Like he plays the
yeah.
run as well
Mhm.
as anybody I've ever seen in terms of setting the edge and not letting things, break contain and whatnot. So you got him and Sam Okunlola on the other side, who is another, I think, ascending player,
Yep.
who I don't think had his best year last year, still had 3.5 sacks. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he doubled that number last year. We're talking about Keaton Wade with Robert Livingston getting him involved in different packages, like playing off ball linebacker and whatnot. So this pass rush, I think, has the ability to lead the Big 12 again in sacks. And, with
Yeah.
that back end, with, DJ coming back and Preston Hodge coming back, which was massive. I'm a big fan of Tawfiq Byard. I think he's going to bring a lot of what Cameron Stillman Craig has brought to this defense the last 2 years. Like he has kind of
Yeah.
been, like nicknamed like Shark 2.0. And I've talked
Yeah.
to Cam about Tawfiq a couple of times this offseason. And, Cam sees a lot of himself in Tawfiq. Like they play really similarly, really downhill. So I think Tawfiq also has kind of all conference potential this year. And alongside Carter, like that's a really
Yeah.
good safety duo with those three corners that I just mentioned, with the really good pass rush in front of them. I think it's just going to be about how well Reggie Hughes and Martavius French and just that second level of defense at the linebacker can kind of come along. But I think this defense really has the potential to be special.
Yeah, and one guy I don't think you mentioned, but Amari McNeil is one that I'm excited about. That
Love Amari
I
McNeil.
feel like Amari, Arden Walker, and who's the other one? Okunlola, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, and DJ McKinney as well. But I'm talking about front guys. They're all
sure.
guys. All those guys I just mentioned are ones. If you look at their career, they've gotten better every single year of their college career.
Yes.
They all started somewhere else, but they've gotten better every single year.
Mm-hmm.
And if they keep doing that, you're right. Arden's going to take that step to where maybe instead of 4.5, he's got 8 or 9 sacks.
For sure.
Amari McNeil, I think he had 4 last year. Maybe he's got 6.
Yeah, I can
Okunlola,
see
if he's got 6, 7. Keaton Wade, if you if you look at his production last year, I mean the big play per snap percentage
for
that he
sure.
had. I mean, he had production in I think it was 150 snaps or whatever that some
Yeah,
guys don't have in 500 snaps.
For sure. I think he had 4 sacks, Keaton did, or close to it. And like all
Yeah,
of that was in like pretty much like a 4 game stretch the
yeah,
second half of the year because he started the year with an injury and ended the year with an injury as well. So
yeah.
the fully healthy Keaton Wade back could be scary along with those other guys.
That could be one of those guys I look at. That's a breakout candidate to me
Yeah.
that we saw a snippet of last year. That's what this team has. There's a lot of guys that we've been teased by that maybe that's
Yeah.
it's their time to
Yeah.
take that big role, like the Omarion Miller on
Yeah.
offense. That he's teased us a couple times, right? The USC game 2 years ago, the K
Yep.
State game last year.
For sure.
Um, Keaton Wade's teased us a little bit. Carter Stoutmire's teased us a little bit.
Hmm.
Now these guys have a chance to be full-time players,
They
and
have.
I think there's a lot of potential. I think one of my favorite stats as I've been doing position previews, Scott, is that we talk about Coach Prime and all the turnover every year on the
Yeah.
front seven, defensive line and defensive end. There's 11 guys back from last year, which is crazy
Most
to
of those
me.
guys are productive too last year.
And you think about like they didn't really add anybody on the edge through the portal, but
Right.
they did on at defensive tackle. You think of what
Yep.
they added at defensive tackle with all the guys that are back in that front seven that are now in year two under Robert Livingston. I
Yes.
mean, I tend to do this too. I focus on the guys that are gone, like a Shiloh, a Cam, the
Hmm.
linebackers, Travis. Like, man, they lost a lot. Then you look, well, there's 11 guys back from the front group that are now year two with Sapp and Livingston. Okay,
Like just that
you
just makes
know,
me think about like Toffee Thomas. Like we
yeah.
saw flash
Hmm.
like Anquin Barnes, like Torian Carter who missed most
Yeah.
of the year. Like those are guys who I mean who transferred in from in a couple of those cases big programs and like
Right.
showed flashes last year
Hmm.
or dealt with injuries in Torian Carter's case who could come back this year. I would assume really motivated and obviously getting coached the hell up by Coach Sapp and Coach Pecco and the rest of those guys. Like this defensive line, and you mentioned some of the additions to the portal.
Hmm.
Like Jaheim Otis was like the number one transfer they brought
Right.
in. If you aside from Caden Salter this year, he was ESPN's number one ranked defensive player in the portal when he entered from Alabama. So I think Otis is going to be in for a massive season. I really like what I've seen from Tavian Coleman this
Yep.
spring, and particularly in the spring game. And in Gavir Lightfoot as well, who was one of the most productive defensive tackles in the Mountain West over the last few years. He started at Fresno State as a true freshman,
Yeah.
so he can play. And all those guys have played a lot of football. This defensive front is going to be scary.
Not to mention three of the best true freshmen on this team are on that defensive front. When you look at oh my gosh, Christian Hudson
Yep, and I
and
love
London Merritt
McPherson and
and
London
Alex
Mary.
McPherson.
Yep,
I mean,
love them.
those three guys, I would put them if you're ranking the true freshmen, I'd put them near the top, and they're all
Yeah,
in that front group. So
and you
it's
mentioned they didn't add any portal guys off the edge. It wouldn't shock me one bit. In fact, I'm expecting London Merritt in particular to play a role this year, and it wouldn't
yeah.
surprise me at all if Alexander McPherson did as well.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to watch those guys, see how they fit in, because that's a very veteran group.
Oh
And
yeah.
you got those exciting true freshmen down there, and so it's going to be interesting. And I know you got to run, so I just want to ask you real quick. We're starting fall camp on Monday. Just give me your
Hmm.
general thoughts. I mean, what's the biggest thing you're going to be looking for in camp? I mean, the biggest, I guess, there's a whole bunch of stuff we're going to follow, right? But what's the
Yeah,
main thing you're excited to see in fall camp and kind of get answered or whatever?
I'm excited to see these quarterbacks. Obviously, first and foremost, sling it and really compete. Where it's different competing or being in a quarterback battle in the winter or in the
Hmm.
spring or throughout summer workouts during player-led practices. But it's completely different when you're quarterback competition when there's a game in 4 or 5 weeks,
Yeah.
and there still hasn't been a starter name. Like that's a completely different ball game. And I'm just excited to see how those two guys handle it because they've handled it perfectly up to this point.
Yeah.
It's been, to use DJ's words, like it's been competitive. It's not been combative at all. So I'm excited to see that continue to grow. I'm excited to see who ends up, being the guy if somebody ends up separating
Hmm.
themselves. And if that
Yeah.
doesn't happen, how they plan to deploy this two quarterback system, which is seems like a real possibility at this point from
Yeah.
everything we've heard from those two guys and even Coach Prime. So it's gonna fall a lot for me. This is a massive season for Pat Shermer at
Yeah.
offensive
Hmm.
coordinator.
Yeah.
He has to get creative with the run game. He has to, whoever is under center, whether it's Juju or Caden, he has to really cater the offense to them, to give them easy throws, to make their life just easier out there on the football field. And that's a really important job. And He just has to be better this year, Pat Shermer does. So I'm going to be watching
Yeah.
that in particular. I'm obviously going to be watching the running backs, something we talked about earlier, right? They have to have some semblance of a
Hmm.
running game this year. I think DeKalen Taylor can help in that regard. Obviously, Dallin and Micah, who I really like. I think both of those guys are going to play a role in that as well. And then a couple of offensively, like right tackle, who wins that job?
All
Is
right.
that Larry Johnson? Is that Philip Houston? Is that somebody else at
Yeah.
center as well? Like I'm assuming Xavier McGill is probably going to be the center, but can Cooper Lovelace make some noise there and
Right.
give Xavier a run for his money?
Tyler
So that
Brown.
would, exactly,
I mean, so
exactly. You're right.
yeah, who
And,
knows?
and Yo-Yo is apparently had a really strong spring as
Yeah.
well. We're not
Right.
expecting him to start really in any means, but there's some real competition on offensive line. I think at center and right tackle that I would be interested at. And then so
Yeah.
that's really what I'm looking at. But because, like I said, defensively, I just don't really have too many worries. Right? I think
Right.
this defensively, they're going to be strong. They're going to be really well coached. They're going to be disciplined. And I think early on in the season, they're going to be a defensive led team. But offensively is where I'm going to be really keyed in at some of those spots. Quarterback, obviously, but
Mhm.
running back in particular, like I said, right tackle and center are going to
Yeah.
be top of mind for me.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I mean, I would say my top thing would be running back. I would say the same thing about running back you said about quarterbacks is does somebody emerge? And if
Yeah,
not, how do they deploy those guys?
for
So that'll
sure.
be my thing. Obviously, outside the quarterbacks, things like that. But then defensively, I think the biggest thing I'm looking for is when we talk to Robert Livingston, I want to hear who he talks about. Because when
Yeah,
Robert Livingston talks about guys, those end up being the guys that are playing, right? That like
100%.
I mean, he did what he tells us generally is what happens. When he
Yeah.
highlights an
And I
Arden Walker,
love coaches like that. I
yes.
love coaches like that.
But when you go back and listen, like he'll highlight an Arden Walker, then what does Arden Walker do? He goes out and have his
Yep.
best season. He'll
Yep.
he'll he'll rave about Cam Silman Craig, and then Silman Craig is unbelievable and is the leader of the defense. So
Yes, no
I just
doubt.
want to listen to Robert Livingston. Who does he talk about? Because I agree with you. I think there's a lot of good pieces on defense. I want to hear who they are. I want to hear
Yeah.
who does he talk about because
And another, I think, interesting uh, position battle, if you will, excuse me, on the defensive side of the ball, we know DJ McKinney's going to be out there. We know
yeah,
Preston Hodge is going to be out there. Who's going to be
yeah,
that third corner? Who's going to be that
right,
fourth corner, right? Because the
yeah,
fourth corner last year was Colton Hood, who you mentioned earlier. He played
yeah,
a really important role in that defense
hmm,
last year. So
yeah,
whether that's RJ Johnson, who is somebody who Robert Livingston, one of the quotes that stood out to me early on this spring, where he was like, I love the look in RJ's
right,
eyes this
yep,
spring. So RJ Johnson could be one of those guys. Teion Parks, who came in from Illinois State, led the Missouri Valley Conference in pass breakups last year. I'm expecting him to be in the mix as well. Tyreek Davis, who
Tariq
they brought in
Davis,
from
yeah,
Wyoming, I think he's being really slept on because he was kind of a late addition and whatnot. So that's another spot at cornerback. CB3, CB4, however you want to break it down, is going to be
yeah,
interesting as well.
yeah. It's gonna be interesting. It'll be a lot of fun. And hey, I'll see you out there on Monday. We're gonna find
See,
out a little bit about Coach Prime's health and all that, and get ready for camp. Summer's over, Scott.
it's here. We're back.
All
We're back, Brian.
right, we'll see you Monday.
See ya.